This lady from Connecticut made a whole video using Gen Z lingo. So Sigma.
That is awesome.
I've
She's 100.
I've watched a couple of those. They're pretty funny.
I just don't have it in me. Derek,
Yes, sir.
what is going to happen to the economy?
No, you need a better introduction. I don't think you introduced Scott Hicks either.
You know what I think?
Did
Got
we
this.
do
I've got this.
Andrew?
I've got this strategy,
Okay.
and this really cool strategy. I'm not going to introduce anybody, and I'm going to make David start doing voiceovers introducing our guests.
No, I don't want to do that again. We're not doing that again. That's more work. You're gonna hit the camera. I haven't looked at the video either. Me kicking the camera the entire show. I didn't. watch
We
that.
were at a show a while back, and like, dude just keeps like kicking it over and over again. I'm like, what are you doing?
I was just fidgeting, and I kept smacking the camera, and the camera's doing this all the time. It's fine.
Okay, he didn't like my introduction. Derek, introduce yourself, brother.
Derick Van Ness with Big Life Financial. We do tax and financial strategy for shop owners
Yep.
and help people to keep more of the money they make and be smarter with it.
Nice.
In a nutshell.
Very
You
cool.
don't just tell everybody to pay their fair share, send more money to the government.
No. I feel like shop owners do a lot better with their own money than the government does.
I love
That's
that.
just me.
David, do you do a lot better with your own money than the
You know what
government
Bill
does?
Gates said?
What?
He said if he was in charge of taxes, he would have paid more.
You know what Warren Buffett says, right?
That's it.
It's like, I don't like paying taxes. It's just part of the game, but my job is to make sure I pay as little as I possibly can, because my shareholders appreciate that.
I don't think he realizes you can just write a check to the government if you want to. Just send them money.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something about that. If you accidentally overpay them, they don't even say thank you. And they definitely don't give it back.
Oh, that's what the refund is, overpaying.
Yeah, but if it's like something else, you accidentally overpay on sales tax. Yeah, I mean, like it's a thing.
No, they don't say anything. It is jumping through hoops to get them to refund you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know
And
there's
you just
companies
open yourself up
that do that, like sales tax audits where they come in on your behalf and they audit your stuff and make sure if you've been overpaying that you get that money back.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But
Does that happen a lot, do you think?
it's not something we really focus on for a lot of our folks, but they have said that they pretty consistently are able to find decent chunks of money for people.
It has to be a very specific kind of industry.
Yeah.
That they're like, there's rounding errors here that we can dig into, and there's enough transactions that we're going to be able to find some money.
There's our accountant, when we started going through this stuff with the family business, he said, and he's actually on the board of directors for that business, and he said, I'm 50-50 on whether we hire a forensic accountant to come back and start looking for the numbers. And so he has a friend who is a forensic accountant, and we interviewed and talked with him. And it was really neat because I just started asking questions, and he said, for instance, Belk Corporation. He said, we went to work for them and said that they had a situation where they had overpaid things. He said, we went to them, we had an agreement. I just want 50% of whatever I get back. And he said, we made $4.5 million. And I'm like, dude, what? You can accidentally overpay $4 million in something? $8 million, right? Like, holy
If you're doing
crap.
$200 million a year, like
Yeah.
Just a couple mils missing.
a couple mils here and there.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people don't always realize it's everyone's looking for the silver bullet, right? Like that one huge thing, but it's usually a bunch of small things, right? Like tax strategy. It's a bunch of 5,000 here, 10,000 there. It adds up to $50,000, $100,000 a year, whatever, depending on the size of the shop and what people are paying. Investments, it's the same thing. It's not losing quite as much. It's growing a little more. It's keeping it a little safer. It's tax efficiency, optimizing your taxes. And over time, enough money runs through a shop owner's hands that if you can just shave off pieces of that over and over and over and put them in your pocket, it adds a lot to the
I could see
pie.
that.
Yeah. Like that's a big part of our game is just identifying all those little things that add up.
So like you come into the shop and tell me about like what that looks like. What's the strategy when you come into a shop?
It kind of depends on the person, right? I don't want to come in like bull in a china shop. If they love their financial guy, if they love their tax person, if they love their insurance people or their business coach or whatever, we want to work with the people that are working for them. But we also want to look at, is it working, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, this is my buddy. He was a roommate from college. And then they have to kind of decide what they want to do. But we usually start with taxes because it's like the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
If we can come in, we do like a 3-year tax audit for them. We go back through, we look at like what are some of the things you could have done and what didn't you do and how much more could you have saved. And we can't see everything, like could they have bought some different equipment? But based on what they did file, did they miss some things? And usually there's a bunch of little things that consistently get missed that are worth some good pennies.
I'm feeling a little self-conscious now. I've never made enough money that I had to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Who are you talking to?
What in the world?
Well, there's a lot of shop owners out there who make $300,000 to $1 million.
Yeah.
And so we're
in
really
profit.
in profit. Yeah, like taxable income, even after their
Mike Allen's of the world.
deductions and everything.
Mike Allen's pretty much a scumbag, man.
They need to start sharing some of that.
Just pass the wealth around.
I don't know. If I could just force or have the government do it for me, just make them force him to give me some of that money. That'd be great.
Yeah, they have a system for that.
Yeah, I know, right?
They're working on it. We'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, so tax evaluation is step one.
Yeah. When
And make sure there's nothing missing.
right.
What's the biggest thing that gets missed most often?
Probably the single biggest thing. There's two things. Consistently for a lot of years, we've been doing research and development credits for shop owners. And so most of them miss those. I just got one back, an assessment for a good sized shop, but he's going to get $32,000 back for that particular year. That's a big one.
How are you writing off R&D stuff? Like,
So the easy way to say it is it's not a write-off, it's a credit. So R&D, anytime you're bringing in new systems or new ways to do diagnostics or upgrading what you're doing for your shop to get better results, then the wages you're paying your people and all the time and figuring it out, and sometimes you try something. I mean, we've all tried a piece of software, right? And it doesn't work and it blows up and it takes 2 months and finally we do something else, or a new piece of equipment, new way of going about something. It takes a while to kind of get it figured out and optimized. But all the man hours that go into figuring out, should we get this new piece of equipment? Once we get it, how do we use it? How do we make it efficient? How do we get the best results for our clients to make sure that it's working well and accurate? All those hours.
Do they have to track that?
No, not really.
Yeah.
There's-
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
guess you could get loosey-goosey on that. But my question would be, what stops the IRS from coming back and going, no, this is normal business operation?
Right. Well, anytime here's the rule. It's called the 4-part test, right? So there's 4 categories. So are you looking to improve a product or process, right? So shops are a service business, so it's usually a process. Not very many of them are making products, right?
Okay.
Is it based in science? So specifically, they define science as physical science, chemistry, engineering, or biology. So a lot of this is for shops is like engineering or computer science related, right? Is there a process of experimentation, right? Like, is this something that you don't already know works? Like if you buy a widget and then resell a widget, there's no real risk there.
Yeah.
So that's doesn't really matter. And the fourth one is escaping me for the moment. It's the one I always forget. It's really related to, is it a product or process? But essentially, if you're doing new things and they're based in science, you're probably accruing credits because the government knows when you try new stuff, it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
And so they don't want people to stop trying new stuff. And it's not like they're giving you dollar for dollar credits back. Right?
Yeah.
You're getting like a couple of percentage points on those dollars.
Sure.
But most of the wages you're paying your guys to figure out new stuff, or the owner's paying themselves to go out and research and figure it out. Because, as an owner, you're always looking at tons of new stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, even with this podcast, you guys are like, oh, should we get new microphones? Should we try different camera setups? What about lighting? How do we make all this work? We got to do marketing and all these things, right? And some of those are going to check the boxes, and you'll get some credits for some of those. And when you have enough money running through a shop, and I would say this starts to apply for shops that are maybe $500,000-$600,000 of revenue and above, then there's enough money there that it starts to become $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 plus per year for shops that are continuing to try new stuff, right?
Yeah.
A guy and his son in the garage not doing anything new, probably not.
Yeah.
But a lot of the shops, especially shops that come to events, right?
Yeah.
They're learning new stuff. They're learning how to work on electric vehicles. They're learning new approaches, different ways to streamline all the software and tie it all together. Like it's a business, right? So those accrue credits for them. And so we do the to answer your question, how do you keep them from coming back? So we fill out a questionnaire that is all the different projects they did, and we check up, this is how this checks the boxes for this project. And then ultimately our CPA is the one that signs off on it and kind of determines what really counts and what doesn't.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's the next biggest thing? Because you said there were a couple.
Yeah,
real big
another
ones.
one that a lot of people missed last year is if you're in a state that has sales tax, there's something they call it the SALT tax, but it stands for state and local tax. And if you paid your state tax before the end of the year, then it becomes a write-off for your federal taxes.
Yeah,
So
they're trying to take that away.
yeah, I think they're trying to put limitations on it because these huge companies, especially in California and New York, they're paying tens of millions of
money,
dollars
yeah.
in state taxes, and that becomes a federal write-off. But like for a regular guy, he's in a state that has 5% tax, and he makes $500,000 taxable or whatever. He's going to pay $25,000 in state tax.
Yeah.
But that if he makes that much money federally, he's in a 35% tax bracket. So it might save him $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in federal taxes to be able to write that off. And that really, 2 years ago, some of the states did it, but last year was the first year all the states had that effective. So
Smile and wave for the camera.
yeah,
It's video, dingus.
Yeah.
See?
It'll be okay.
You have to
You'll
tell
be
you
fine.
that.
You're a dingus.
so
I understand
you-
using it. I have an objection to the SALT thing
Why do you have an objection to the SALT tax?
because you're subsidizing states that barely have any sales tax or no sales tax. Like, what do you do in Tennessee? Not
You're just-
Tennessee. Tennessee's like what, 1% or 2%?
No, I don't
they,
think
don't- they don't have sales tax there, or Texas or Florida.
Or Florida, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of why a lot of businesses are going there.
They don't have any taxes, and so because they're giving people in New York or California the write-off, they're sort of subsidizing with extra steps those people in those states so that the state can keep jacking up the taxes on their locals. That's all it is. It's a kickback for him. See, he agrees with me. He's like, yeah, it is. No?
I probably should have warned Derek how you feel about paying taxes.
You got to make money to pay tax next year. I don't make any money.
Yeah,
I
don't
lost money
either.
last year. I told you that. I was in the red last year.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
He worked very hard to accomplish that. He spent months.
spent months spending all that money.
Yeah.
Spent months. Then all the money's legit. Like, you got to be. I wasn't trying to lose money. I wasn't trying to make it either. Shook out however it did.
Listen, man, as long as you're having fun,
That's right,
That's
David.
the key. Usually it takes some money to have some fun, but if you can do it without it,
I'll be
you're
honest
beating
with
the
you.
system.
If David ever had fun, I think the world would just unravel right there. That would be the day that hell froze over. David doesn't do fun.
Yeah, you're the
We go to a lot of conferences, so that's a lot of our travel is to conferences, and then we got to do this podcast, and we got to go to the events, and there's a lot of event expenses, a lot
Yeah.
of conference travel expenses. You know,
Yeah.
it adds up. And then at the end of the year, you're like, huh.
I don't have any money.
And don't pay yourself a lot either, you know. My wife makes pretty good money, so that helps. But, you know, I told her, I said, you can quit your job. You know, we'll have to cut back on some of the expenses, but it'll be fine. And she's like, yeah, I don't trust you. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I were in her shoes, I wouldn't either. I'm just saying.
What are you talking about?
I mean, on the reliability scale, You're a 4,
I can
4.5.
understand. She's probably more hesitant because she's like, I want to make sure that bill gets paid. I'm like, it'll get paid on time. Sometimes.
Eventually.
Sometimes. Depends how the month's going. Some months, yes. Some months, no. But you know, there's certain things you have to pay. Like you got to pay the rent or the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Mortgage has got to get paid. So that comes first. Everything else, like you don't let your insurance lapse because then you may not get insurance again. So don't make sure that gets paid before they shut it off. But everything else, you know, the electricity, when
Gets
it
shut
turns
off in the
off,
shop
yeah,
every
you
once
just
in a
turn it
while.
back on. Well, yeah. So they
It
shut
depends.
my.
I had a thing in '08 where, so I was a house flipper at the time, and I had like 16 flips going, right? When all of a sudden the banks just couldn't lend anymore. So I couldn't sell them, right? So I got crushed, lost a couple $1,000,000 and went upside down. And definitely remember coming home and the power was off. I called the power company and they said, first, we can't do it until Monday. So I had to explain to my significant other at the time that we were camping for the weekend. She didn't love that. And then they said, hey, because your power got turned off, we want a pretty big deposit. I think it was like $1,000. And when you're broke, like I was at the moment, $1,000 as a deposit really was a lot to swallow. So it can get messy. I get where you're coming from, and it's funny. You almost sound like you have the opposite problem that a lot of people have, which is they're like more and more and more. I can't be happy unless I have more.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, just enough to get by. But they both have their struggles, right? One, you're a little worried, like, well, if I can't quite pay the bills, that's for me, that's a pretty scary thing. I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm like, this isn't great.
Yeah,
that's
that's me. David's like, I don't really care. I mean, like, if it burns down, cool, whatever. I mean,
it's not that. Do I worry about that? Yes. I want to maintain the opportunity to get it back. You see what I'm saying? So it's not. I don't have enough money to pay the bills. It's like, can I float that another 3 days because I think by that third day I'll have the money. And so that little glimmer of hope is enough for me. Like I'll float on that.
Yeah.
I don't worry. Like, will it get paid? Yes. Will you let me have that extra time? And so, you know, I push it with the state. Sometimes they don't like it.
Yeah.
But as long as they keep me open, I'm good. Now, I would freak out if they came and shut me down. At that point, it's like, okay, well, I can't even conduct business any longer. Like, how am I supposed to pay this? Yeah. Now I got to think of something. That's what I would worry about is getting shut down. Or, you know, something happens where I don't have enough insurance and the building goes up in flames. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't make any more money. This insurance payout better help me out here.
Yeah. They're not in a rush to write those checks either.
No, they're not. So that's where I get a little concerned. And, you know, I probably should have more cash in the bank. But I do have good friends that will lend me maybe $2,000 or $3,000 for the month. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
I was just patting you on the back. I was talking about Dutch. I'd call Dutch up.
Yeah, I don't have. I mean, like, if I give you $2,000 or $3,000, that means I have $2,000 or $3,000, and between the two of us, we got $4,000. We're gonna have to balance this bad boy.
It's okay. I'd give you if I only had a few thousand. I'd give it to you.
Yeah, likewise. I don't care. You can have it all.
And I always have the GoFundMe. I'll throw that GoFundMe up so quick. Sad kids crying in the front, the whole nine. See what happens.
You just got the template
That's
already
why,
made.
hey, listen, that's my insurance. That's why I keep contributing so much money to all these GoFundMe pages. Because like one day I'm gonna like stroke out. Like, hey guys, I'm gonna need your help.
Yeah, like I'm throwing this out into the universe, and hopefully, I won't need it. But if I do, it'll come back. But if I don't, I always got the OF. I'll throw that OF. Throw that old b-hole in the internet. We're good to go.
I do a lot of that too. Good karma. Just
What,
put out the good
OnlyFans?
stuff. Not a lot of that. A lot of good karma.
Oh man.
I'm just telling you that one day, old guy shows b-hole on the internet is going to become quite the
But I mean, do you like? How would you feel knowing that Jeff's the one watching your OnlyFans account?
As long as he pays, man, I don't care.
I like his attitude. There's a lot of freedom there.
A lot of freedom.
Yeah, you
Keeps it loosey-goosey.
I mean, like seriously, like it would seem that some in this world have a competitive advantage when it comes to platforms like that. I mean, they really do. But I'm just pointing out that, like, who would look up David Roman on OnlyFans? I mean,
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm not on that list.
I know I'm not on that list.
I mean,
I'm damn sure not paying for it.
That's so messed up.
I bet you money. I would put dollar bills on the first two people to sign up. Would be Jeff Compton would be number one, and he'd pay just to look, and Mike Allen would pay just to see if it was legit. Right? I'm just telling you. You gotta be okay. You didn't think this was going to be serious, did you? I just wanted to...
He'd pay just to look.
I did not anticipate this, but I didn't think it was going to be serious.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to a dark place.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
you
nothing.
get into some
This is
situation that
nothing.
your back's up against the wall. You got to do what you got to do. That's all I'm saying.
It's true. It's true.
Anyway. So they're not taking R&D credit. What was the second thing?
The salt tax.
Oh, the salt tax.
Yeah.
The salt tax.
Yeah.
Is it that you're finding that these shop owners are not going to CPAs, or that the CPAs are incompetent?
Really neither. So most people think their CPA is like tax guru, right? Like, oh yeah, he's sitting at home like reading tax code, looking for ways for me to save money. No, that guy's at his kid's baseball game too, right?
Yeah.
And most shop owners like forget, especially the people who earn a little bit more, where taxes are a little more serious. Like they're a top 5% client for their CPA, right? Most CPAs, most of their clients are W-2 income earners, very simple tax returns. Business owners, maybe they got a small stable of business owners as clients, but a lot of those business owners make $50,000 to $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, but like they're not into the game where taxes get crazy.
Right.
So that's where most of those CPAs live. They're really just tax filers, right? Tax preparers.
Yeah.
They're not trying to do strategy, because the people we're talking about, or that we mostly serve, are like the top 3% of their clients. Well, if 97% of your clients fit this one mold, and then there's this other 3% that you make about the same amount of money on, are you going to go and spend all your time on the 3%?
Sure.
Yeah.
Probably not. You're going to spend it on the 97%. So the extra 3% kind of get the same treatment in most cases. So they're not getting proactive advice. And, if you go and talk to a CPA, they want to be proactive. They want to help you out. It's just they're so damn busy working with their other 2,000 clients that unless you raise your hand and say, hey, guys, can you look at this for me? What can I be doing? Then sometimes you'll get a little bit of advice. But even then, they're just so not used to doing it that it's just not their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Like people think becoming a tax professional is what CPAs do, and it's not. They're mostly auditors and CFOs and those kind of things. A few choose to become tax guys, but it's not part of their training.
When we started working through the chart of accounts and explaining to my newest accountant why we do things the way we do in the chart of the accounts.
Mm-hmm.
It was a real wake-up call for me because, like, they didn't understand even the basic business principles of what we were doing, right?
Wow.
And I'm not saying he didn't know the tax law, right? He knows the tax law. That's not the problem. It's just it didn't make sense to him why we were doing what we were doing.
Right.
Now, to me, it makes perfect sense, but it was an eye-opening moment because so many shop owners look at their CPA like, hey, I'm expecting you to tell me if there's something wrong with the business.
Right.
Bro, they don't know your business.
A lot of them don't. Right.
I mean, it's very, very rare to find one that would know the financial requirements of an auto repair shop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Parmelis, that's the extent of those that are in this field that really know how the automotive business runs. Yet, I would say 50% of shops, especially smaller shops, are depending on their accountant to be like, hey, you didn't make any money, right? Most of them show up and they get on the show or you talk to them at a show and they're like, my accountant told me that I had made too much money and I needed to spend some of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a big faux pas, right? Like even if you're in a big tax bracket, let's say you're paying 40 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
To go spend $1 to buy something you don't need to save 40 cents makes no sense. Now, if it's like, well, we had a big year, we're going to buy this diagnostic equipment in November, December versus January, February. Okay, let's buy it this year so we can get the tax break. Totally makes sense because you're going to buy it anyway. But to go buy something, I've definitely had people who are like, yeah, I bought this extra car. And I'm like, well, do you need one? And they're like, no, I never drive it. Like, that's just terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they just lost a bunch of money because they were trying to save taxes. So we have to be careful to not have the tax tail wag the dog. And sometimes people do that. So, yeah, you're absolutely right that people take it into their own hands or they're talking to a CPA that maybe doesn't fully understand their business because taxes is one thing, but like forecasting and planning how to run a business and managing cash flow, it's a different skill set.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? And I actually think most CPAs are more well equipped to do that, but they may not know automotive at all.
Yeah, absolutely. What other tools or tricks do you recommend for repair shop owners? You know, because I know you work in investments in some other areas, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think the majority of shop owners, I mean, like David does some, but the majority of shop owners are probably not to a place that they're able to invest right now. Especially, I would say the majority of our listenership is kind of like in the middle somewhere, right?
Yeah.
What
they should be investing all the time, regardless. I don't care how
I
much money
agree.
you make.
I'm just saying, like, we have a lot of shops who listen who are either just starting out, they're tax turned owners, they're just now kind of starting to get the business.
Income, you need to be investing.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, well, then they're living on something, so scale that back.
So
I don't know.
The trick to
$2.
what you're talking about is, first off, I do think if you're a new shop owner and you're not making much money, your first and best investment is actually to get your income going.
Yeah.
Because if you're peeling off those extra couple of bucks to go put them in the stock market or something, you're going to do better in your shop.
Yeah.
Right? Put it into marketing, put it into team, put it into training, put it into things that are going to make you more money because inside of your shop, you have so much more knowledge, so much more control. You're going to make better decisions.
Yeah.
I don't love the stock market because I think it disempowers people.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people do it out of default. And it has its place. But when you're just sticking your life savings into something you have no control over, you don't understand, you can't get to it because it might be in a 401k or IRA. Like, I feel like that's not great. But to your point, I do think as soon as you're making a reasonable income, let's call it $50,000 to $70,000 a year, you need to start setting aside money. And the way you do that is you automate it. Like, people aren't good at going in and doing that themselves. But if you pay yourself a W-2 of, you know, if you're paying yourself $4,000 a month, right, because you're at $50,000 or something, then just automate 10% of that. Gets every time you get paid, like 2 days later, it just sweeps into a savings account and you're saving $400 a month. Yeah. And then as your income increases, you want to automate that. But automation is really the biggest thing because for most shop owners that I talk to that are successful, like if they just took $1,000 or $2,000 at checkout, they'd never even notice it.
Yeah,
right? They make pretty good money, and at the end of the year, they've got $12,000 to $24,000 that's been set aside, right? And then obviously you can invest from there. But I always joke that savings is the kind of the gateway drug to investing. It teaches you how to do it. And if you don't put that in place, you never really get to where you've got 25 or 50 grand to go to do an investment. Yeah. So you got to start with the savings. I think 10%, even if you're not sure you can afford it, just set it up. You can always go into your savings account, transfer it back if you need to.
Yeah.
But if you're like a lot of shop owners, you're working out of your checking account, you don't necessarily see that, or it goes over there and you're trying not to touch it. So you make a little better decisions and you adjust just a little bit. And so maybe you spend most of what's in your checking, but you do end up with money in savings. And it actually becomes a little bit addictive as you start to see it grow. You're like, I like this. I want to do a little more. And then you start to get things going. And then once you get a chunk of money going, then you can grow it. And there's lots of ways to do that. But it really is, it's just putting a system in place. Like we advocate for something we call a financial operating system.
Okay.
Which is really treat it like your business. Well, what do you do with your business? You got systems, you got people, you've got things working in a way that's a protocol, right? Yeah. It's not just happenstance. I don't know, we'll just upcharge this much on that one. And these parts we'll just, we'll shoot from the hip, right? Like that doesn't happen. You've got a system.
Right.
Same thing in your finances. So we think a tax system, a cash flow and growth system, systems and automation. So this is like I was talking about, automatic sweeps or automatically putting money aside for taxes and all that kind of stuff. And then a protection system, because we're all going to get some kind of curveball at some point, a health thing, a relationship thing, a partnership thing, a whatever. And it could be just that your parents go into an old folks home and don't have long-term care.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't know what it's going to be, but it happens to everybody. So you got to have these protections in place to kind of blunt that and make sure that you don't lose everything when that weird stuff happens.
Right.
So those four things, and then you got to have the team to help you execute it.
For sure. And let me ask you this. You talk about putting some money back. What type of percentages do you recommend for the shop owner that has nothing right now? What kind of money should we have put back, say, by the time we're 40? Mm-hmm. Because that's something that keeps coming up. I saw something the other day that said, hey, by the time you're 65, you're going to need $1 million to retire based on where we're at right now economically. What are your thoughts? How much should we have back, and how much should we be consistently putting back as an owner to be preparing?
Yeah. So the first thing is, if somebody's not saving yet, it's hard to go balls to the wall, right? So I would say start at 10%, just because I think most people can do 10% and not feel it, right? Yeah. So just get used to that. And then it's like weights. You don't start with the 100-pound weights. You start with the 10-pound weights, and you do that a little bit, and then you go, okay, 15, 20, and you work your way up. Same thing with savings. Just build the muscle of doing it, build the habit.
Okay.
And then, so I'd start at 10% if you're doing zero. I think eventually you want to try and get to, of course, as much as you can, but I would say 20%, 25%. And the way that I have people do that is we get to like a baseline of like, okay, you've got a house and you've got kids and you've got cars and life's okay.
Yeah.
We've got a baseline. From there, we use what I call the extra dollars theory. So every extra dollar you make, you don't spend it dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
Right? You say, you know what? We're going to spend 40 cents on this dollar, but the other 60 cents we're going to put away to start building other income for us, right? To invest and grow. So as you make more, you can still live on more, but you don't do it dollar for dollar, because we also know like every year is not going to be your best year.
Right.
You hope it would be, but it just never is. Like, you always have those weird years where something goes on.
Something slows down, something happens.
Yeah. So if you've increased your standard of living a little bit because of that extra 40% over and above your baseline, now you've still got that 60% cushion plus whatever you save to kind of get you through. And if you need to reel it in or whatever, get through a tough year. But it really makes a huge difference, because now as you make more, you save more. But also as you make more, you still get to spend more. It's not like every extra dollar I'm busting my tail for, I don't get anything for. I still get to live better, but you get more aggressive about saving. And ideally, if you can get to 20, 25%, then you're putting away a pretty significant chunk of money, and you can really make some nice headway. And then we like to take all the tax saving stuff, right?
Yeah.
We have you save like you're going to pay all those taxes, and then everything we can save for you, instead of like going and buying a pool with it or a fancier car, then you take that money and put it to work, and you start building these income streams outside the business. Because what a lot of shop owners feel is the weight of, I got to make this thing crank every month. I got to pay the bills. I got to pay for my house. I got to do all that. And it's all on me. There's no other help. But once you start getting these other investments, and in the beginning, it's very slow, right? Like you're not going to see a lot. But over the course of a couple of years, now it's like, oh, we got an extra 1,000. We got an extra 2,000. We got an extra 3,000 that starts to help lift that weight.
Yeah.
And you can take that and you can reinvest it, and you probably should. But now, if things ever get a little tight or they get a little tough, it's not all on your shoulders at the shop to do that.
There's some residual.
Yeah.
So you say that you teach them to put the money back for taxes like they would be saving it anyway. Mm-hmm. What are your recommendations saving wise for taxes? What if you go into any random shop and you say, hey, you might end up paying these taxes. How much are you telling them to save out of their gross income for taxes?
An easy number, if someone's making less than say $200,000, which is a lot of shop owners, I would say just set aside 25%. Now, some of that's going to end up as your savings, right? They won't end up probably at 25% because if you're a married couple, you're in the 24% tax bracket plus taxes until like $390,000. So you're going to probably pay less than that. But I also know a lot of people, they're saving their 25% and then something happens. They got to dig into it a little bit and some other things. Like I do think a shop should try and have 30 to 60 days worth of working capital. So how much does it cost to run your shop for a month? I would say 45 to 60 days, somewhere in there. Yeah. So maybe 2 months worth. Have that buffer, then you've got your tax money. But if that buffer gets too tight, you can always pull a little bit from your taxes. But that builds in a little savings. But I'd rather people oversave just a little bit than undersave. Yeah. Like if you're super tight, start at 20%. If you're a newer shop owner. But and then as people make a little more, you can get more accurate. Like there's a really good tool I like it's just a tax calculator on Smart Asset, that website.
Okay.
You can put in your zip code, you can put in your income, whether you're single, and you can put in things like 401ks, IRAs, a few things, but really it'll tell you how much you'll pay in taxes. And you can kind of use that as a number to say, okay, it's not 100% accurate, but if I'm putting that away, I'm going to be pretty close. And if you're paying yourself a W-2, you're already getting, some of the taxes paid out of that. And then you save the 25% on anything that's over and above your W-2.
All right.
So
what do you do? How much are you saving back?
I don't save anything back.
I couldn't give you an exact number on like how many weeks. I keep 4 months of payments, mortgage payments put back, right?
On your personal side?
No, for the business.
Oh, okay.
Like, so when we talk about operating capital, I try to keep at least 4 months of the big payment put back. The other payment I have, it's smaller, but I like have another account. And then I try and keep like 20, 25,000 in my savings account. So we typically keep, 40,000 set aside that I don't just automatically touch. Right? Mm-hmm. If it gets tight or if it gets slow, I'll dig into that and then I'll put it back and move it back and forth as I need to.
I have $40.
I know better.
And I work with percentages because some guys have 5 shops and some people have, a brand new shop. So it is kind of a ratio thing. More bills to pay, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want your staff to be able to sustain that. I've heard from my insurance people a couple different times that they worry a little bit that may ability, and I've got income replacement, and I've got the stuff like that. We just happened to walk through and like shaking hands and kissing babies, as Mike calls it. He said, listen, I do think it's important to talk to you about that you might potentially be insured too much. And somebody in the room said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, if easier target for them because you are so aggressively insured. And I said, I don't know about that. But he was talking.
I'm sure they're going to come after you regardless.
If they
Well-
think you have some money, yeah.
Yeah, his point is that the predatory attorneys, the ones that have these billboards out on the side of the road that say hurt in an accident.
Lawyers are all good people. I don't know what you're saying. See, so what you got to do is not show up and I know, I'm sorry. So what you got to do is not show up in a jacket and slacks. You need to look like a bum. You make sure everybody knows that hey, I'm broke. Don't come after me for anything.
Or at least say it on a podcast.
I say it every time I can. Are you kidding me? These people.
David's probably the wealthiest one among all of us. Everybody thinks it's Dutch that's got money. It's actually David.
No. My house has gone up quite a bit in value, though, let me tell you. My rental house
Yeah.
has not. Zip code.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Do you advocate for shop owners or for folks to invest in property?
I think it depends on what you want to do, but overall, I really like real estate, like rental real estate as an asset, but it has two big weaknesses. One is no liquidity, right? Like if you need money, the bank's not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's harder to get your cash. And the second one is it's a real asset. Like if you're struggling and you don't like a stock and it's going down, you can just like sell it like that.
Yeah.
If you've got a property and it gets mold, like you got to deal with it. You're dealing with real people. You're dealing with real stuff. So it's it's a little more hands-on. I mean, shop owners are used to being with the public and with people and some of that. A lot of people these days are like hiding behind computers, right?
Yeah.
So if they want to be hands-off, real estate is not the thing. But, you can hire a management company and all those things, but you got to manage the manager too. I've definitely had rental properties where, the guy's telling you, oh, we need a new air conditioner. And it feels like he's charging you double. And amazingly, his buddy's the one selling you air conditioners, and it's like there's definitely that kind of stuff out there where you just need, like anything else, you need a good team, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be hands-off with real estate, you got to have a manager, but you do have to manage the manager. So I think those are the main downsides. But real estate, you get good depreciation. If you do it right, you'll get cash flow. You get interest write-offs, and it appreciates over time, which is pretty significant. So real estate, as a rule, kind of sucks for the first couple of years till you get that good tenant and you've had it maybe 5 years. And now the spread between the mortgage and the cash flow starts to get real nice. From there forward, it's pretty good because you can even not get the best rent. And I used to do this, like charge a couple $100 less than I needed to, because then you got 1,000 people to choose from. Everybody wants your place, and you can get the best tenant, and that's worth it.
I think the tenant is the only thing that makes it work, right?
Yeah, it's the key. Yeah,
we did vacation rentals for a long time, and that was horrid, right?
Just all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, because like 3 a.m. the remote control doesn't work.
I know. You're like
4:30, the
batteries.
gas logs don't work, right? Like, and it was always they just didn't understand how it worked, right? It was never they didn't follow instructions, and you couldn't tell.
They called you?
Oh yeah.
Mine
does
seemed like
that?
it was all texting, but it was still, it's just all the time. I was running like 4 of them in San Diego, and every day you got 3 or 4 people turning over, 3 or 4 that need to get cleaned. And I had a great cleaning crew, and it ran as smooth as it could, but it was just always there, always there, always there. You never could you're out to dinner and the guy's like, I can't run the lockbox. How do I get in? Right. And you can't just ignore that.
Exactly. You have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it right then.
That sounds awful. Pass.
And then, long term, I mean, some of the places that we saw got trashed. I mean, made massive messes of things, and not. It was like people that you trusted, and they would be good tenants, and out of nowhere they would flip, and all of a sudden they're not a good tenant anymore, right? And so we saw some stuff like that was that really sucked. And so my parents, before Mom died, they liquidated the large majority of all of their property assets except for the one big piece. Right? There's some of them that they own. There's some of them that he still has that he's working his way out of. But I think the majority of the property assets are gone because it was so much to manage and it was so much to keep up with. And some of the people were just paying their ass. Now we're in an area that a 2-bedroom apartment is $3,000 a month. And so there's opportunity there for me if I wanted to do that. I just don't know that I could deal with the people.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you can make money so many different ways. It's not really about how can I make money. It's about what do I want to do with my life? And then within that corridor, like these are the things I'm already going to do with my life. Like you guys probably would do the podcast if you didn't make $1. Like you like it, you enjoy it. Okay, do that, get really good at it, and you can make money at it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I much more advocate for that type of life. Like you can create your own freedom, which is doing things you love, whether you get paid or not. And you can create your own prison. I mean, I was talking to someone earlier and we were talking about, why don't I have a podcast? Because I've had them in the past. And I was like, I just need to find a format where I'm going to enjoy it. Because me doing certain types of interviews with certain types of people, like I'd get bored or I'd get burned out. And the worst case scenario is it's really successful.
And
then
you
stuck doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I'm
100%.
making money, but I want to jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
That's not a great trade. So
for sure.
So I think the bigger thing is, do I advocate for real estate? Yes. If somebody likes and is interested in real estate, absolutely. If someone's scared of it and not going to sleep well at night, if someone doesn't want to deal with it, no, there's plenty of other ways to make money.
Yeah.
So I really think that's a big part of it is understanding what works for you. And a lot of times you don't know until you do it.
Right.
You start doing real estate, you're like, oh, Robert Kiyosaki. Oh, this sounds like the best thing ever. Passive income. And then you're like, oh, wait, this isn't quite so passive.
Right. This isn't exactly what he explained. He made
The
it
stock
sound.
market can be a little passive. You get some blue chip stocks. They pay a decent dividend. Not great, but some money comes in. You buy enough of those stocks, money can start coming in.
So you bring up a good point with the stock market. Lucas was saying, you got to have $1,000 or $1 million or whatever. Like just for people who don't know, one of the reasons I don't like the stock market is when you get to retirement, it's not very efficient for distribution, like for taking income because of the volatility, right? So the market goes up on average about 7% a year. So you would think in retirement, I can take out 7%. And if it was the same every year, that would be true. But because of the ups and downs, when they run the math, it's between 3 and 4%. So $1 million in the market only produces $30,000 to $40,000 of income, which isn't very much in today's world. And then you got to pay taxes on it, right? So on the growth, so it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you really do need more. A lot of other things that are more consistent, you can get better cash flow out of. And once somebody becomes an accredited investor, so an accredited investor is someone who makes, as a married couple, it's $300,000 a year, or single person $200,000 a year, or if you have $1 million net worth, not including your house, right? So people who do pretty well or have saved up some assets so that they aren't trying to do this with their last dime, they get access to alternative investments. And there's different kinds of funds and different kinds of investments out there that are a little bit more, you're investing in like private real estate groups or you can give money to private equity, or you can do oil and gas, or you can do some of these other things that are, not the stock market and can give you a bit more consistent rate of return. I mean, there's still risk. You still got to work with a professional, make sure it's the right thing for you. So I'm not giving investment advice here.
Yeah.
I don't know who's listening, but they're a lot better for creating income for people in retirement. And that is one of the good things about real estate is it does create consistent income. If you get a good tenant, you kind of know what you can count on, and that makes it a lot better. Yeah. But a lot of people think the stock market's going to give them, Dave Ramsey just got reamed because he did a video where he was like, the S&P averages 11%, so you can pull 11% out of your...
Did he really say that?
He really did.
What?
And go look it up. And so many people just nailed him to the wall. Nailed him to the wall on that because that is just flat out.
That's someone
inaccurate.
Drinking their own juice for so long, like they've completely
know what reality is.
Yeah, they've become completely disconnected from reality. That's insane.
But most people just don't know these things. They're kind of following the max out your 401k route. And, if you're an employee and you're getting a match, that's a good benefit to put money in there. But now it's kind of trapped. For shop owners, I just think there's a lot better things you can do.
The oil thing's a little sketchy. I was in a deal with some oil, and they were pumping some oil, and it was going really good. and then
it went really bad.
The price of oil went down, and that they stopped sending money out from all of the money that we're making pumping this oil out. And then they're like, hey, we're going to shut down operations and we're going to taper off. And you're like, oh, okay, well, there goes that money. It was nice for a while, though. They were making bank.
What other things do you think that shop owners should know or that shop owners frequently miss?
So another big thing that we've really been on a little bit of a soapbox about is building their business so it's sellable. Mm-hmm. A lot of shop owners are in their 50s now, right? They're getting to the point where they're thinking about selling, and their business isn't sellable because it's totally leaning on them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you really need to build a business. And what a lot of people don't realize is they think it's about profits, and it is, right? You guys know the term EBITDA, right? And most people think, well, it's all about EBITDA. And it kind of is, but your multiplier, which is how many times EBITDA you get, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, whatever, comes down to what we call your intangible capitals, right? So who's your team? What are your systems? Who's your customer base? Goodwill in the community, or reputation, or brand recognition, all these kinds of things that make it so that someone can come in and basically buy an income box, right? Like that's what an investor or a buyer is looking for, whether it's private equity or another shop owner. The shop owner who's going to pay the most is the guy who can buy something that runs by itself, right? He just shows up, makes sure that everything kind of stays in line, and the
no
business.
Shop owners buying a business like that. Trust me, that's a guy that made a lot of money doing something else, and he's like, I'm going to buy a shop, and then they show up and they're like, oh, this thing will run themselves.
And I think the one you're thinking about moved out of the state they were in and went and did something else.
This happens way more often than you would think.
It does. Oh,
well, definitely private equity guys, like they're out there buying these things up, not necessarily one at a time, but we do have some shop owners we work with who they've got 2 or 3 shops. They've got them pretty dialed in. And so they're looking at shops, and we have them create like an investment profile of like, what does a shop that we want to buy look like? And if they've got the key people and they've got the key things in place, and it's like, well, we need to get a couple things sorted out here, a little bit like a fixer-upper house, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's great. They can go get a deal. But if it relies really heavily on the owner, they can't pay nearly as much as if he's got the right guy in there running the shop for him, and the owner's just going to step away, and it's much better. So when you're trying to set up your business to sell it, you want to set it up so it's super appealing, right? It's like a house on the beach, not a house that's a fixer-upper. You're going to get a lot more money for it, So that's...
for me, I think that we should be doing that even if we don't plan to sell.
100%.
Because
it's the
even
most
if something
profitable
goes
way to
wrong,
run your business.
It is. But even if something goes wrong that you weren't expecting, you know what I'm saying? If like things blew apart in the middle of the night, you got sick, you had a heart attack, you had a stroke, you couldn't work anymore, like everything could be gone just like that.
About 50% of business sales in general, it's that. They call it the 5 Ds, right? Divorce, disability, disease, disagreement with the partner. Like all those things happen, and people are forced to sell.
And they're fire sales at that point.
Yeah, because it's not ready to sell, and they have to sell fast, right? So it's not ideal. So like you're saying, Lucas, being prepared for that puts you in the best possible situation. I mean, those situations still suck.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm okay with the make sure that you're not integral to the business. But what do you say to somebody? I would prefer sucking every little dime out of the business. Mm-hmm. I don't care what it shows. Screw EBITDA. I don't care.
No, but EBITDA is, if you pull the money out, it's still, the business was profitable.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? Like from their perspective, they're still looking at what are you taking as a salary and all your distributions. That's part of the profit. So
ancillary benefits, though.
What do you mean? Like how it's paying for your car or your cell phone? Or
not personal expenses, but employee benefits. Let's say employee benefits become extremely a very large part of your P&L. Mm-hmm. Now,
like health insurance,
health insurance. Maybe everybody gets a free car. Maybe everybody gets their gas paid. For example, my shop, everybody gets their gas paid. Mm-hmm. All employees.
Okay.
I happen to be an employee.
Yeah.
That's not salary. Is that taxable?
Not if it's for business purposes.
It's all business purposes.
100%.
Track every mile.
That's it. Well, if people wanted to get in touch with you and talk through this and begin to kind of navigate what's next for them,
Yeah.
how would they contact you?
The easiest way is just biglifefinancial.com.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a button right there where you can download our tax book, or up in the right-hand corner, there's a thing that says work with us, a button. You can click that and set an appointment. We'll talk through it.
Sounds good.
We do consults all the time.
I love it, Derick. Thank you for being here, man.
That's cool.
Appreciate the jokes, guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's trying to say something. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. My cohort here, Michael, is reminding me we do have a Facebook group for shop owners called the Shop Owners Wealth Lab,
Okay.
where we do free
That's
trainings.
cool.
Yeah, we do free
Shop
trainings
Owners Wealth
every
Lab?
Thursday.
I'll check that out.
You guys need to do some like cross promotion with our Facebook group.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
You
have
guys
a
willing to
Facebook
do
group.
that? Like if you guys do a webinar or something like that, you guys should
We-
cross.
We do one every week, yeah, just to kind of be putting ideas out there, like one little nugget at a time, right? Trying to help shop owners just
Well,
Yeah.
on the next
Chew on
one,
it.
make sure you send the information to Dingus over here, and we'll get it streaming on our Facebook page too, because
Cool.
this is stuff that they need to know.
David may even share it on his OnlyFans page.
No, Jeff won't enjoy the content.